the attendance on what's an important meeting. Before we get started, we're going to do the Pledge of Allegiance, but before we stand up for the pledge, I wonder if we could have a moment of silence, please, for a former student of BHS that passed away this last weekend. Spencer Tracy passed away, and he was a member of last year's graduating class. Thank you very much. Ryan, could you lead us in the pledge, please, once everybody gets up?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I want to get started because we got a long agenda, but I really was trying to delay for a minute or so because one of our guests of honor is not actually here yet, as there is an empty seat at the board. We had several people come in and step forward and be willing to serve in the vacancy. We had a vacancy, as no doubt you all know by this point, after the last election. And we interviewed multiple people, and we're particularly impressed by Mary Ellen's dedication to the students of Berlin. And we know that she's going to make a fine addition, so we're going to be going through this. We're going to have a motion to consider, and then we'll go through some of the details of the timeline. So do I have a motion?
I move to appoint Mary Ellen Maloney to fill a vacancy on the Board of Education until the next election.
Second.
Second. Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, it's unanimous. Mary Ellen did a great job at the interview, and she impressed us all, as I said, with her dedication to the citizens and the town and the kids of Berlin, despite the fact that her kids are now graduated, and she still had a large role and a dedicated one. So we look forward to serving with Mary Ellen, and she's going to be with us until the next election when she'd have to run again. What perfect timing.
Heard my name.
You did. Mary Ellen, we just unanimously voted you in. It's now official. I know you'll have to go to the town hall, the town clerk's office, and take the oath of office. And once you do that, you'll be a voting member. So today you can sit with us, but you can't vote. You can do everything but vote, but you'll be able to be there after that. You did a really nice job in the interview. Your dedication to the students of Berlin really moved us toward wanting to work with you further. So you'll have to run for re-election hopefully in November or when we get there, but you'll be serving out the vacancy until then. So thank you very much. Nice job. All right, next up on the agenda, we have a special presentation for, oh my God, how many years? 3 years? 3 years as the Board of Ed President, Mr. Tenza. I want to thank you for all the work. You are the special presentation. I want to thank you for all the hours of dedication. Thank you for the time and the energy and the dedication that you put into this whole process. You've served the board very well, and as I said when I took over, my goal is to be the voice of the board and the face, much like you were for the last 3 years. So thank you very much. I appreciate that. Thank you. Brian had this made for you. You asked me the other night what happened to my gavel. Brian took my gavel and he wouldn't give it back. Thank you.
Matt, if I could just say a few words. Being a new superintendent and you being the board chair, I just wanted to personally thank you for being the board chair as I became superintendent and for all those conversations and help along the way. I really appreciate it and can't thank you enough. So thanks again.
Thanks, Brian. It's been an honor to serve as the board chair. It's been board president, and it's an honor to serve with all of you, and I look forward to continuing to do the work. It's been a pleasure to work with the town, the Board of Finance, and in particular, all of the administrators here in the school district. So thank you very much for all of your support. You guys made the job pretty easy for the most part. So again, thank you for allowing me to represent all of you.
Thank you for your
Thanks.
time. Next up, committee reports, correspondence to the boards. We'll start with Ryan. Jenna's not here. She has a basketball game tonight, I believe. So what do you got for us tonight, Ryan?
So a lot of this has been going on and is coming up at Berlin High School. So first, we have midterms, which are starting next Tuesday, and that is Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And then last Thursday actually was our senior capstone presentations, and I ended up going that night to look at all of them, and I was really impressed. And some of the ideas, I don't even know how some of the people thought of them. That it was just all so creative, and the seniors did a great job. For winter sports, they're all going great, and like you mentioned, Jenna's at her basketball game right now at the high school, so that's why she's not here. This past Sunday was, we have a youth and government club at the high school, so this past Sunday was the pre-state conference, where basically we go and we debate and present our bills that we come up with, and then we get feedback on them, and then we review them for the state conference, which is in March, where we stay overnight at a hotel in Farmington, and we actually debate our bills at the Capitol. So that's a really cool experience. Last Friday was the alumni visit, where alumni from Berlin High School met with seniors about post-secondary education and gave them advice and answered questions. Tomorrow night is the BHS band concert, and that's at 7 p.m. That's going to be really good, so I would recommend everyone attending that. And then finally, today, the NBC's Snow Monster came to Berlin High School, and that was to report on the cancellation cup we have, which is a contest where students and teachers and staff vote on what they think the snow is going to cost, so whether it's a delay or a cancellation or anything like that. So they came and did a story on that that's going to air Thursday on NBC.
Very cool. I haven't gotten a single one of the cancellation cups. I've given up. I think I was like 0 for 5 on the first 5 tries, so I've stopped trying at this point. Did you?
Inside information.
Yeah, it didn't help at all, actually. Well, because Southington, where I am, we seem to be different every single time. So it hasn't helped me at all. I've been trying to go with inside information, and it hasn't worked at all.
So he's cheating.
Did you steal any ideas for your capstone while you were there?
I don't know. I liked one that I saw about, it was about, I think it was something like how, like, divisiveness and, like, things like that, like, affect the political process and how it, like, I think the focus was, like, negatively affected, and it was really interesting on all, like, the research and stuff like that, and that's kind of something I'm interested in, so I really like that one.
That's very timely.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. It's a good thing you went. Good job. Thank you very much. Committee reports. I'm going to go first very quickly because ours is going to be very, very brief. We had a curriculum committee meeting before this. Carrie was unable to be there, but Jamie and I were there with Aaron and Brian, and one of the things we talked about were the main thing were the school calendar. So it's an agenda item later on, so I'm not going to get into too much detail right now. We'll get to it in a little bit when we get there. But I think we also had several committees. What else? Matt, you had finance.
Yeah, so the Finance and Operations Committee, I have to remember what it's called
Yeah.
now, had met twice prior to this evening to discuss the superintendent's budget, how it was being laid out, issues that they have come across along the way. We're gonna get a presentation on it tonight, so rather than you guys listen to it twice, is we'll let Brian present it, and along the way, if there's things that we feel are important to highlight, either Adam, Tim, or I will kind of jump in and say that this was an area of conversation, and this is how we got to where we are today. We had John Richards there as the liaison from the Board of Finance, so the Board of Finance should be in tune with what's going on. And before I relinquish this, I want to say to Eileen and the high school staff, I also attended the capstone projects this past Thursday. I missed seeing you. You were going down one aisle and I was going down the other. And they were excellent. The kids obviously worked very hard. This year it was a family outing, so not only my wife, but both of my kids came as alumni, and they were just blown away. So, and I think that's a telling sign is if they participated in it and they were standing back saying, wow, this is so much more and so much different. I think it just is a good illustration of how that is continuing to develop. So, well done and thank you.
Were alumni actively invited, or did he just bribe his
No,
two
I
kids
made
to
them
come? I got 3 at home.
Yeah, well.
I mean, that's
You
not
were
a
a
bad idea.
slacker.
Well, no, but I couldn't. I was working. But in the spring, on day 2 in the spring.
Yeah, no, they
Shoot for
came
that.
and they were impressed by what they saw, and it was also nice for them to see their old teachers.
Excellent. Next up is the CREC report. Is there anything new, Tracy?
We haven't had a meeting, so.
Okay.
Nope.
If there is anything else, just let us know. The correspondence to the board. I have one here that I'll start with. NEASC, the New England Association of Schools and Colleges, who runs the accreditation process or oversees the accreditation process. And as most of you probably know, the high school underwent a meeting a couple months ago. No, not a couple months ago. A year ago, wasn't it? A year ago. And they sent an updated letter filled with good news. It was addressed to Mrs. Eustace. So I'll read just the beginning part. The Committee on Public Secondary Schools, at its October 21st and 22nd, 2019 meeting, that's where I was getting confused on the dates, reviewed the Special Progress Report of Berlin High School and voted to continue the school's accreditation. And the committee was pleased to learn of the following 3 improvements as they viewed them. The addition of a District Director of Safety and Security and the plans to update all emergency procedures, that's 1. Secondly, the appointment of 2 chemical hygiene officers, one specifically for the science department and one for custodial and maintenance departments. And the third improvement, the online access to MSDS sheets that have been provided to emergency personnel and relevant school staff, including safety personnel, building administrators, building and town custodial and maintenance staff. So that's an excellent first step or continuation of the next steps through NEASC. And I believe the next thing is another 2-year progress report. Due in October. Sorry, I couldn't find the right date. Thank you very much. Good news. Was there anything else, Brian?
No communication this evening.
All right. Yeah, oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, please, please.
Just let everyone know, we, with, Upbeat, along with Berlin Social Services, and then this year in conjunction with Town of Rocky Hill, Newington, and Weathersfield, we're going to have our Central Connecticut Adult Workshop. It will be on February 21st and February 22nd, which is a Friday evening and Saturday morning. This year's topic is on youth mental health, especially with the social, emotional health of our youth, not only in high school as they're going into college, and then obviously our younger kids as well. So we have a presentation from the Jordan Porco Foundation, a woman who lost her son to suicide. His freshman year in college. We'll be doing our Friday night presentation. And then on Saturday morning, we'll be talking about social media and mental health. We also will be talking about QPR, which is, which now it's completely. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. We'll be talking about that Saturday morning, and then we'll have a youth panel with some kids from each of the 4 towns to talk about some of their stressors that they are facing. It'll be a fantastic workshop. Jack Rudy and myself and the towns have been working on it, so we encourage you all to come. It is free. It is only cost if you would like to spend the night. Last year there was a small cost, but this year it is free for dinner and the presentation on Friday, and then breakfast and the workshops on Saturday morning, so we hope to see you there.
Jamie, what was the date on that again?
It's February 21st
Okay.
and 22nd.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And it ends at noon, right, on Saturday?
It ends at noon on Saturday. It'll start, registration starts at 5 with dinner at 6 o'clock.
Okay. Open it up to audience of citizens. Is there anybody in the Berlin community that would like to address the Board of Education tonight? This is the fullest house we've had in a while, but nothing? All right, thank you very much. We'll close out the audience of citizens. And now we're moving on to the consent agenda. Are there any additions or deletions from the consent agenda? In that case, do I have a motion?
Move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second?
Second.
Anybody? There we go. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. It's always going to be anything, obviously. Next up is new business, facilities related. Mr. Cooknell.
I don't have anything new to report on the facilities this month, except in case I've been remiss in saying this before, the town has agreed to fund and go forward with putting the new cameras in at Griswold School, which means that all 5 of our schools right now are going to be suited with brand-new cameras, security cameras. I believe they've started, I know they've laid out all the plans, I believe they've started already.
They've got all the wiring done and the cameras installed, we're just waiting for the final test to
Okay.
make that work.
Great,
So,
great.
Winter vacation, it's a lot of hard work. Thank
Great.
you.
That's all. Thank you very much. So now we'll move on to the establishment of the Berlin High School graduation date. This is part of what we were talking about at our committee meeting. So the new state statute allows schools, used to be April 1st, I believe it was, that we had to wait till April 1st to set a graduation date formally. We no longer have to do that as long as it's after the 180th day of school. We can set the date at any point. So in meeting today, the recommendation from the curriculum committee as brought forth by Aaron O'Brien is that we formally state Sunday, June 21st of 2020 as the Berlin High School graduation date. Do I have a motion?
Move to set the Berlin High School graduation date for Sunday, June 21st, 2020.
Second, anyone?
Second.
Any discussion on this at all?
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
I know that Brian had sent out a survey, I'm not sure when, months ago, about potentially moving it to a Friday evening. And I think that, just in case anybody remembers that, that would be, if there's gonna be any change, it would be for the following year, because we'd already locked into reserving CCSU for this 2020 graduation, correct?
That was the next part of my conversation.
Okay.
No, you're right. I'm glad you brought that up. So let's vote on this,
Yep.
but the Friday conversation, I want to fill everybody in on where we are with that.
Okay.
So all those in, did you have, okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It passes. So getting back to Adam's point about Friday, we're not looking to make any changes. Obviously, we've just set Sunday, Father's Day again, continuation of what we've been doing on Sunday at Welty Hall. It'll be, no doubt, at 1:30 in the afternoon, I believe. But we are actively contemplating the next year after that. So that will be 2021, moving it to a Friday instead of having it on Sunday afternoon. So in order to do that, we're going to give plenty of time and plenty of conversation, because I know there was a big controversy last time the topic was even brought up. So what we want to do is, before we go ahead and move anything, and since we already have an adopted calendar for that time, we can actually set the graduation even 2 or 3 months from now for the following year. We're way ahead of the game on that. We'll talk about it. I want to have parent input on this. Possibly one of our articles in the Citizen may even be addressed to the rationale behind it, so that if there's anybody that has any questions, they'll have the opportunity to make their voice be heard. And it's so far in advance that the conflicts we hope will be avoided by doing it on a Friday. We can talk about, well, hopefully, Tim, hopefully. So we will get to that. I imagine it'll be a couple of months. It'll be on future agendas. You'll see it on there for discussion and then eventually a vote. There is one more. I need to ask for a second motion, if you will, because we were taking a look at this year's calendar as well. And this year's calendar, what we would like to do is set the 181st day, because right now our calendar has 181 days in it for this school year. And we want to set the 181st day to be a full-day teacher PD day. So the kids would end on day 180, and then on day 181, teachers would come back for a full day of PD. There's multiple reasons behind this. Would you like to explain some of the reasons behind the PD?
Sure. As I explained in the curriculum committee meeting, one of the things that we face every year is that we continue to be asked to provide more mandated trainings by legislation, and there are several additional trainings that have been added to our agenda, so to speak, since the calendar was originally set. Those include mandatory training on sexual harassment for every staff member, training on human trafficking. We continue to get requests and additional needs that come up. In the past, we had as many as 12 half-days across the year where we had early release, which allowed us to do some of that professional development. That was changed in the current year's calendar to go back to having 3 half-days, but we still find that there's a need for additional training throughout the year, and this would give us that opportunity.
Excellent. So we're looking for a motion, I will say, to issue day 180 in this year's calendar, in the 1920 calendar. Day 180 will be the last day of school for students, and day 181 will be a full-day professional development day for teachers.
Do we have a copy of that calendar anywhere in our folder?
It was in the committee, I don't know.
I can put it,
It's posted on the website, and it's in the folder that is January 13th curriculum committee and the board
So
folder.
far, we've had 2 snow days, but, so we can't actually set a last day of school because we don't know how many snow days are coming. But day 180 would be the last day for kids, for students in our buildings. Does anybody, actually, then, do I have a motion?
So, hold on, right now,
Okay,
day 181 appears to be June 17th.
it is. Right now, with no more snow days, that's when it would fall.
With graduation now being set for June 21st.
Yes,
The following Sunday.
yes.
So students would go on Tuesday, the 16th.
Yes.
For half a day.
For half
So
a
the
day.
16th
For
would
half a day.
become
So the
an
16th
early
would be a half
dismissal?
day,
So
early
in an
dismissal
effort
day.
to make sure that we follow the appropriate Roberts rules
Yeah.
of is,
Go
I
ahead.
shouldn't be asking any questions until we have a motion and a
Okay.
second, so I'll hold.
So the motion, as I'm asking for, is a motion to allow the 181st day, the 180th day to be an early dismissal, last day for students, and the 181st day to be a full-day professional development day for teachers.
Hang on one second.
Okay.
So
I just asked Matt a question. He's gonna.
So point of order here is because this is not on the
You need to add
agenda.
it. You need to make a motion
need
to
to
add
make
it
a
to the
motion.
agenda.
Make a motion
Add it
to add
to
it,
the agenda.
to add it to the agenda. I apologize. So I'd like to make, well, I can't.
I'll make the motion. I'll
Okay,
make a
thank you.
motion that we add an
Well,
item to the.
This is not a good omen if the microphone is
Can
collapsing
you
on
just
me.
talk slow?
Yeah, sorry.
I'll make a motion to add to the agenda discussion with regard to the 2019-2020 school calendar.
Second.
Can you say that one more time slower?
Add to the agenda,
Okay. we will.
you got
You
it.
got it, you all right?
Yeah.
Okay, is there any discussion on the addition to the agenda? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, so now it's added to the agenda. So now, do we have a motion to make the 181st day a full day for professional development for teachers?
Do we need this as two separate motions to go with the early dismissal and,
To me, it's one,
The
it's one
forgiveness of the
concept,
day?
early dismissal on day 180 and a PD, full day PD on 181.
that seem okay? I'm okay with that. At least you can make it.
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we make the 180th day half-day for students and the 181st day a full day for a PD for the teachers.
Do we have a
Second that.
Second to Tim. Any discussion now? Matt, did you have a question on that?
I have a bunch of questions.
Okay.
All right, so first is we're taking the students from 181 days to 180 days. Prior, we took them from 183 or 4 down to 181, and now we're gonna take them backwards another day.
We also removed multiple half-days, however.
But,
Okay,
hold on.
sorry, go ahead.
And in addition, is staff has 188 days. So, I guess my question is if they have 188 days, why are we taking one day of, and I understand it's the end of the school year, nothing's really going, I understand all of that, some of it's just optics. But why are we gonna take a day away from teaching and add it to a professional development day when I was under the impression that we had all these built in already?
We had, last year, I want to say 12 half-days that we then decreased to 3. So the thought was that, given the mandated trainings that new ones seem to be popping up all the time, that we'd get additional time for those mandated trainings. So gaining back some of the time. I mean, if you think back of the last 3 years, we've made modifications to the calendar at the end of the year, turning student days into PD days anyways. So that was the thought.
You said you had lots of questions. Are there more coming? I only have 3 answers.
Well, we can't go any lower than we are.
Well, that's my point. So I know that the board worked hard to move them out, and now we're rolling it back.
I would only say that I do believe.
That was actually gained last year,
But we also gave them more days.
180 some odd days.
I know, but it's okay. They're
Yeah,
instructional.
yeah,
so
yeah.
it was on the
Yeah, it
instructional
doesn't,
side.
it's still contact, but.
I think it's something to consider, the amount of seat time seat time is not a good way to put it, but instructional time for students, given, yes, we have reduced the number of afternoon professional development, but half-days count as a day toward the 180, and we also have early dismissals on days of conferences. So we do have a fair number of early dismissals still in our calendar. I know we talked about and this is a larger discussion, I think, but I know we talked about the benefit of either having full-day professional development for faculty, teachers, versus half-day. So maybe that's worth revisiting if some of those can be collapsed, and then it would build out another day if a full day were devoted to that, you know.
And if you think of it, going from 12 to 3 allows us to, of these half-days that we'd have for PD, allows us to pick up roughly 18 to 20 hours of instructional time that we didn't even have built in, even with the amount of days that we had.
I have a question. On the last day of school, it being a full PD, do you think you're gonna get the most out of teachers on the very last day rather than at the beginning of the year?
We have a lot of them front-loaded. The thought for this year is, though, that there's enough mandated trainings, human trafficking now becomes a mandated training. We just had a meeting this morning on social well-being, a training, and looking at the all-hazard plans that all the schools are trying to create, that there seems to be more and more mandated trainings that we're requiring teachers to annually be involved in, and to ensure that they have those credentials each year. So that was the thought behind it. That was really the impetus behind it.
I think you raise a good point. This is the model that we used last year, and we had a very successful last day that, with staff that was a PD day. We ran the 2-hour training that Melissa Garden came in and did on human trafficking. So we're actually, we're able to provide something that was a very important, very meaningful topic to teachers. We also had someone come in and speak to gender issues in the classroom. So I think you're right, you have to be thoughtful about what activities you schedule on that day, but I do think that it can be a valuable learning experience day.
Is there a fiscal impact by converting it from an early dismissal to a PD day?
Transportation,
So the net is less.
and that was less, and I don't know, Jeff, you know what the daily transportation rate is? I don't know the rate off the top of my head.
It doesn't cost us any more to
No,
have,
no, the PD doesn't cost us any, other than providing the PD for the teachers, whatever the cost may incur, but you save on
That's-
transportation for the.
Haven't we cut it down to 180 days the last several school years anyway with snow days?
Yes.
I can't remember the last time we've
Yes.
actually done over 180 days for the kids.
depends on where the weekend breaks.
Exactly.
And we did it really, if it was a Friday, we looked at, yeah,
Exactly. But
maybe
it's been-
181,
It's
you know.
it's been a couple of
Yeah, a
years.
couple of years we
since
have, I know, yep.
Have had more than 180.
Now that we have a little more information, can we vote again on this?
We haven't voted
We
yet.
haven't voted at all yet.
You
can vote again if you
I'm
want.
not with it today. No, I wrote down Nato for the previous one, adding it. Okay. Yeah, that's perfect. It's like, yeah, I need it today.
And we can't take that back.
Yeah, so
No, that's
there's,
fine.
there's two options going forward. One is we could hold the vote now, or two, we could table it for a meeting until we can get whatever information people are looking for. As a committee, we talked about it behind the scenes. If you have things that we didn't think about asking, and there's important ideas behind it, we could table it. It wouldn't hurt us at all in our planning if we tabled it until, let's say, the end of January, I think the 27th is the next full meeting. We could table it until that point. Is that?
What time do we need an answer by? Like, this current year's calendar, it's already middle of January, so,
Well, we're talking about the last day of school, so.
right.
We've made adjustments after April 1st typically, because that's when we used to set graduation.
Right. Right.
Because of the state statute, so I don't think waiting a little while is gonna hurt anything, because we've made those adjustments late in the year anyways.
And I think if we have specific questions that we're not thinking of, because you want to digest this a little bit and come to play with it, maybe put some of those questions or concerns in writing and let Brian or Aaron address them, and maybe that makes it a little bit easier. Also, I do think this is important because this is a model that we're looking to maybe implement in future years as well. So if this model of going a full day of PD at the end of the school year works, it's something we may continue doing going forward. So if there are a lot of unanswered questions or unthought of questions yet, let's give a little bit of time. Are we okay with tabling this for the moment?
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's required, we're researching now, but I might withdraw my motion, just to
We're
say.
gonna leave your motion. I'm gonna move to lay this on the table until the future meeting.
There you go.
So now we need,
to lay this on the table.
so we need a second
For a
to
future
your
meeting.
motion.
Yes.
There's the second. Adam seconded. You got enough room to scribble that
Then we
down?
need
I
to
do.
approve.
All right, so,
The table.
okay, so the motion, and it's been moved and seconded to put this on the table for the time being, and we'll bring it up at a later date. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we're going to table it. All right. Oh, now I got to get back to the other agenda. I believe you're up, are you not, sir? Yep. Not the 5th, so is the 27th a workshop meeting? It is a workshop meeting, I believe. All right. So we'll have to make sure that we get on the agenda for the next one, so. I don't know where I put this.
I want to thank the Finance and Operation Committee for their time in the morning, as well as John Richards for all his input as we met the last couple of weeks putting together the budget. Also to thank the Board of Education staff for all the time helping me put this document together. My goal this evening is to give you an overview of what I constitute as a budget that will keep the district moving forward, as well as keeping us in the direction that Berlin has come accustomed to. What do I mean by that? I mean that there's certain courses, offerings, class size, that have kind of become the staple of Berlin Public School education that I believe that people come to expect. So I think the budget looks to maintain those as well as move us forward in a conscientious way. So start with last year. I want to start at that point. Very fortunate to receive a budget that was, almost triple some of the budgets I received in previous years. Looking at where we are on a 5-year average, definitely closer to the other towns that are surrounding us at a 1.74. I thank the town for that, and I want to thank the members of the parent group that organized to help get the word out. So I think it's important to look at the per pupil expenditures. Going back the history, as you see that they are rising across the state, as well as they are rising in Berlin. But I think it's important to look at despite even having an increase in the budget, if you look at the red and the blue lines, the gap between Berlin and the state average is only widening as we go. You can see in the last year here, that gap has been getting greater as the average of the state compared to our per pupil expenditure. Yes, we made a little gain last year, but you could see before what it was. Just to see it, show it against certain towns, looking at towns that were in our DIRD, or DIRD D, we're right in the middle. Looking at where our per pupil expenditure is compared to some other towns, to give a reference point. This slide here, our summary, really outlines the backbone of the budget. It takes into account all aspects of the budget and gives us a summary of where we are to date. As you look at the lower left-hand corner, you can see that the increase that's being proposed is 6.47%. Of that 6.47%, just to meet contractual obligations, we're looking at 2.3% increase. So that means if we kept the same staff in place moving forward to the 2021 budget, we would need 2.3% increase of our previous budget. So when we're asking for the 6.47, you're really looking at another 4%, or if you want to look at numbers there, you're looking at a little less than the 2 million for an increase. So when you're seeing an increase on the first line, administrative salaries, I'd like to take you through just a little explanation of what constitutes that increase and why we have an increase of 2.59%. Contractual obligations for administrators, a little bit over 2% in step and increment, and being at 2.59%, there are no new administrators in this year's budget. It really is just contractual obligations along the budget line, as well as we had benefits budgeted. They were moved into, the annuities were moved into the administrative salaries. They used to be in the benefits. And that's why you actually see an uptick of 2.6, let's say 2.59 benefits. For certified salaries, Looking at the certified salaries, the 4.01, you might say, certified teachers are receiving a 4% budget increase. That's not true. The teachers' increase this year is around 2.6, I believe, overall. The reason why it's 4.01, we are asking for some new positions. The new positions that we're asking for are positions that we've had in previous years. Really, mostly from last year. And those positions would be, at the high school, we're looking for a world language teacher. We cut a world language teacher a few years ago at the high school. Really need to bring that back. We're looking for a teacher leader, which would be in the teacher certified salaries, not as an administrator, similar to what we did at the elementary schools, and an interventionist. So a teacher leader / interventionist at the middle school. We're increasing, we're also increasing world language, sorry, 1 second. Tech integration, last year we cut tech integration at the elementary school. That cut in the tech integration means that the students at Willard and at Griswold are receiving only half the time that they previously received in the tech group. It also means that Hubbard, the Hubbard tech integration / media specialist, is now filling in at the other schools to cover the time, so it's balanced across. So it's leaving gaps in the curriculum for the students across all 3 elementary schools. We'd like to bring that position back. And we also would like to add a pre-K teacher at Willard for next year. So essentially in the certified salaries column, we're looking at four new staff members. Non-certified salaries, non-certified makes up our paraprofessionals. It also makes up our computer technicians. It makes up clerical, in-school suspension. It does not include security, as security is in the town budget, but it makes up all the other salaries. So we're looking at a 9.07% increase. There needs to be an understanding here when we talk about the non-certified staff, why that increase. Paraprofessionals, oftentimes with paraprofessionals, it's not as though we can control the number of paraprofessionals. If a student moves into the district and they have an IEP where they require a paraprofessional, we are obligated by law to provide a paraprofessional for that student. So that can happen without anything in the budget. It can happen as it's happened a few weeks ago here, and it happens multiple times throughout the year. Also, students who are currently in the district may require a paraprofessional. With that being said, that number of paraprofessionals changes quite frequently. That's one reason for the uptick. We also added paraprofessionals at the K classrooms. We added a paraprofessional for every 2 classrooms. We'd like to continue that. We are now taking our choice students at the K level. It's been last year was exclusively at the K unless they had siblings. So the need for additional hands in those classrooms has been vital. So a few other items here in the paraprofessionals. As you heard earlier from Mr. Cugno, we have installed cameras at all the schools, over 300 cameras. Those cameras were the sourcing. The installation was done by outside agencies, but the maintenance of those cameras will be done internally as much as possible and not proprietary like the high school's cameras. That being the case, there needs to be more IT help to take care of the camera systems and security systems in the district. So we've asked for an additional computer technician. And the other line is the substitute line. There's an increase of $165,000 in substitutes. The need for substitutes is greater than the pool that we have. That being said, we did add an additional building sub, permanent building sub at each of the buildings to try to compensate. The rationale behind that simply is that the lack of continuity, not having enough substitutes if teachers are out, means that you have teachers often getting pulled from the normal assignment. And you might say, well, that's okay, except for it could be a reading teacher that typically is servicing a student in reading, but we can't cover a classroom, so we now need to cover with that teacher. Or a specialist that's supposed to see students at a given time and no longer can service the students. Library media specialist getting pulled to cover a class. So the need there is for subs is great. The annual contract increase is there also, so that's what constitutes a 9.07. Employee benefits. Looking at the employee benefits, it's 4.86% increase. There was some cost savings there. We're looking at the town at a 10% increase, but moving forward with where we were projected for this past year, we're at roughly a 5% increase to meet the employee benefits. That includes the benefits of the proposed new employees that I spoke of earlier. Contracted services, the two main drivers here, looking at the budget that really stand out, and I think it stands out when everyone looks at it, contracted services at 27.91%, and the equipment budget at 221.6%. You say, why would these drivers be so high? And it was a conversation amongst the Finance and Operations Committee, it's been a conversation amongst the administrators. The way the budgeting is being done in town has shifted. The budget process started very early, September, October, and into the summer, where the town meets, and the new capital and equipment plan is now a $25,000 threshold in order to get under the town's capital and equipment plan. And in that cannot be technology. So we really don't have a spot to put the technology that's needed within the district. And in all transparency, we look to document what technology needs the district has, and then to document them adequately here. I can tell you that these numbers initially were much higher. We asked our tech director to look at what the needs were within the district and to document them as such. We did pull back quite a lot from that, a lot from what he recommended, but the need to still show what those services are is great. So the increase that you see is a lot to do with contracted services. Those contracted services last year, for the first year, Effective School Solutions, the high school program that oftentimes when our budget gets discussed, we have parents and students come and discuss with us the importance of Effective School Solutions. That is currently in the budget as it was in the budget for last year. We're asking to add one ESS clinician at the middle school. That's $100,000. That's $100,000 for the contracted services here. We also are looking for, there's $300,000 in contracted services for security infrastructure increases, operational systems, school hardware increases, and there's $32,000 for curriculum for in-services and $20,000 for meeting and conferences. So that's where the $400,000 comes from. And as I said, that $300,000 has a lot to do with hardware and IT. Utilities, it's something that we don't control per se. It's really our best forecast based on where we were this year. Transportation. Transportation costs, we're with NBT, we have annual increment of 3% increase. But the 4.13, why? That increase has a lot to do with the specialized transportation, students that are outplaced, students that are expelled, we're required to provide the transportation. Other pieces are fleet of vans, which the Board of Education owns. The maintenance and repairs are only going up to keep those older vehicles on the road. Tuition. Tuition, you'll see an increase there. We definitely scaled back on tuition. In years past, we used to hold several spots for outplaced students, looking to hold a couple $100,000 for those outplaced students. We have pulled back those tuitions and not holding on to as many open positions. We have in there for one expulsion at $15,000, and our magnet school tuition is increasing 4%. So you can see where the driver is for tuition. Supplies, textbooks, and materials, we've decreased them 10% last year. We took another % this year. We keep narrowing that down as an area that we tried to cut. Textbooks really are, it's really contingent upon the needs of the school, how outdated the textbooks are, new courses being offered, and so on. And the last one being equipment. Again, IT is driving that $170,000 of equipment. Also within that budget, any of the equipment that we cannot put in the town side are now in the equipment side. I'd like to just go quickly through and highlight a few areas here to show you through. I'm not gonna go through every line. You have the background. We tried to lay out the budget in a way that you can go in and actually see the salaries, what constitutes salaries, what the previous budget was as revised at 12/31. That is the most accurate for the year and what the increases were. Taking a look at each school. I encourage when you look at this though, when you look at each school and you see a percentage increase there of 13.63, you say, how could that be for certified staff of 13.63? And that is that there's the addition, there's that technology integration specialist I spoke of for the staff. As well as, we look here, it looks like we don't have a library media specialist. This is again looking at saying, how transparent can we be? Currently at Griswold, we have a paraprofessional acting as a library media specialist. You might say, why do that? This person is receiving her library media specialist certification, and next year we budgeted in the budget that she will, or that position will be funded as a teacher. So there's an increase due to that. So when you look at the percentages here, we budget as an aggregate across the district, not by school, but it does give you a snapshot of what staff are in each building, and what the total salary would be. Again, I won't put down Hubbard. And Hubbard last year, after the budget was set, we had a classroom that was in need, it was over 30 students. Al called me up and said, Brian, 30 kids in a class, we haven't done it in elementary school in a long time. Is that what's gonna take place? And we need to add another teacher. Typically in Berlin in the past, we've looked to say, hire the best that we can find. We did not look at years of experience and so on. We hired the best teachers we could find. Last year, we really took a hard look and said we have to put a cap on it, find the best within a range, because we just didn't have the money. So the increase here is that new teacher, as well as contractual obligations, moving forward. Again, looking at Willard School, the .5 tech teacher, that's currently straddled, we want to add that. These are just certified salaries here. McGee Middle School, looking at, McGee had a number of teachers that we did not, this is positions we eliminated, but necessarily didn't eliminate teachers. They were retirements, transfers. We transferred a math teacher to the high school. We also transferred a tech integration person to the high school. So with those positions being transferred to the high school, it allowed us not to have that great an increase here because we had those funds available. McGee currently also lost, and this is on the administrative side, we also lost an AP last year. So McGee took more cuts last year than any other school. We're looking at increasing that math, one math interventionist / team leader. Berlin High School, additional one world language teacher. This also has, the dollar difference here also has the percent increase for everyone's contractual obligations for the following year. At the district level, we have an increase, we have a decrease here, and even with the ESL tutor, ESL teachers, we have one ESL teacher, and we have ESOL aides or tutors that work within the schools. That model there allows us to meet the needs of the vast number of students without having the price of paying for the multiple teachers. And you can go to, I don't know if it's worth my time going through, but the non-certified staff, very similar. But I draw your attention to very different percentages, 5.76, 2.0, 17.89. Why the difference? Right now, we have 4 para positions open in the district. With the continuity of paraprofessionals within the district is very limiting. The paras that we start with by the end of the year, we probably lose 40% of the paras at any given point. So when you budget for a paraprofessional, that para position may be open for 3 or 4 months. So that para position is locked in, the money is there, but then that person comes in, let's say in March, but they were open for 4 or 5 months before. So now the salary is still set for the following year. So when you see the difference and an increase of 17.89, based on the summary numbers, that's impossible to have that unless there were positions that were open. So looking at the 13 paraprofessionals that were there, those paraprofessionals, intermittently, we did not have all 13 throughout the year, if that makes sense what I'm trying to explain to you. So they were budgeted, but we did not have them on the actually being paid during that time. Number of custodians. I just think these slides in the past, it allows for you to see what personnel is at each building, and how much personnel is at each building. Looking at non-certified at McGee, looking at non-certified at the high school, you'll see that the paraprofessionals under special education obviously are the highest number, with custodians at the high school, custodians at the high school are more the paraprofessionals, but paraprofessionals make up the greatest number for most of these. In-house school suspension, one at each building. Clerical staff last year at the middle school, we cut a secretary. At the high school, we also cut a secretary. You know, we did not bring those back in this year's budget. They remain cuts. And district-wide salaries. At the Board of Ed, we also cut the position at the Board of Ed. We have brought that back on a part-time basis. Employee benefits, looking at the benefits page here. Breakdown of the health benefits and insurance, the 10% increase projected new employees based on where we were this year, being at a total of 4.86, 403B contributions, FICA, staff course reimbursements, that's contractual with teachers, our liability for unemployment, we kept that consistent with what we had last year. That's obviously a floating number depending on what we get for the budget, if it has to be cuts, if people retain jobs. You can see a little bit here about the contracted services, which I said was one of the large drivers here. So, without me going through each one, I think that if you wanted to look in a little further to see where the money's actually going, it's laid out in a manner that allows you to definitely determine what's making up that percentage increase or decrease, or where the money's being spent. It's broken up by school. One thing we tried to do too with the contracted services, if there were duplicates in each building, they were paying by the building, we looked to lump them together, trying to get a better price, and having them paid by central office, so you see some adjustments of line items moving forward. The sports budget's tied in here with DHS and McGee. Contracted services, as I said, it's a large item, many parts with it. If you look in the middle there, the red, $95,797 transfer to district account, so that was at the building level. We transferred to a district account. Utilities, you can see what we're paying, what the predicted increases are. Transportation. We spoke of the contractual obligation, special education transportation. And the tuition. You know, we pay for our public in-state tuition, the special education, and vocational there. Obviously, we have students aging out, so those numbers have decreased. And the special education private has increased, but 3.98% is a relatively good number for that. On the lower part, that note, it's important to note, there's a misunderstanding, if we have a choice student, they require services, we are reimbursed for those services. It's not as though those go against our budget. So what I mean is, if we have a student in Berlin who's a choice student, and they have an IEP, and they require an outplacement or services above the $8,000 that we receive per student, we get reimbursed from Hartford that money. So it's not hurting Berlin's budget, it's not going against Berlin's budget, we're getting that money back from Hartford. I can tell you that this year, we just received a memo that Hartford is now starting to require each district that has choice students to validate their residency of the choice student if we're gonna bill them for reimbursement. So we're now required to determine that, as we do with other students, that they reside in Hartford, because in order to be eligible for choice, you must reside in Hartford to be eligible. So it's something that we have.
We get to do that.
What's it?
We get to do it.
Yes, we just got the notice 2 weeks ago.
Hartford doesn't have to verify their students?
Hartford used to just pay us and they verify. Now they're requiring each district to. So CREC, which oversees the choice program, sent us a memo saying, let us take care of this for you. And we received a memo on Friday stating, yes, all of you have to validate the residency in order to get reimbursement. So right now, we have, I believe, 11 students who we would have, well, there's more than 11 that would get reimbursed, but 11 out. Linda, 6 or 11, I can't remember. 6 outplaced, but
then there's
18.
five more that.
All right, so 11 total that we get reimbursement from, 6 that are outplaced that we get reimbursement. So we pay for it and then they give it back to us. So it's not going against minus the $8,000. Okay, so that's how it works. But I think it's important to know that's what we're getting back from the choice grants. And then the excess cost grant also that we receive back. The excess cost grant, you'll hear more about with Linda's budget, but the funds that are returned to us also. Supplies, this account, has been up in years and down. It's really a matter of what textbooks are required and how outdated. We've done a decent job of funding. When a new course or a course needs a new textbook, I cannot recall a time we would not found the money to buy that textbook. But if they're not requested, then that number changes. That number, we don't ask for it. But overall, supplies, we definitely have pulled back on supplies. As I said, 10% last year, 1% at this given moment, going into the budget. But you can see where some of the supplies and what the amounts are. Copy, paper, testing materials. Equipment. Each of the schools, each of the administrators went through and listed out their equipment budget and their request. We went through and then really took down the equipment number quite drastically from each building. These items here may have resided in the capital equipment in previous years, but now they're residing in our equipment in the operational budget. So you can see some of the things that were here for each building, and the numbers that they vary drastically. They vary from repairing a skylight that's leaking to equipment for classrooms, flexible classroom seating, to cafeteria tables, to various podium, to anything needed that what fell into equipment. So very differing across the board, but needed a place to put them. And then the other expenditures, really dues and fees. The professional organizations, and you might say, what are professional organizations? Some of them that we belong to are at the building-based level. It's not that we're paying for individuals to belong, it's organizations that, as a district, we belong to or are a part of. Some of the professional organizations at PD that keep us up to date on what's going on currently and what's going on in other towns, other parts of the country. And then tournament fees, athletic is in here too. So I realize it's a real large overview. We tried to put everything into a document that's very transparent and that you could then go back through and see how things tie out. It's difficult given the system that we use and how things are coded within that system to really to get it. It's much cleaner than it's been in the past, but we do still have a ways to go. The YMCA, that's the transition center. That's the little building downtown across from the Coffee Bean and next to Kensington Pizza there. We pay $6,000 right now, so $500 a month, and they're going up to $7,000. Currently, we're servicing 5 students. This gets into the equipment. We title it District Equipment and Facilities Request. So you can see what Hubbard's asking for here. The painting, the maintenance, these are all things that typically they would be on the capital improvement list, but being that they don't meet the threshold. So, I'll just go quickly through it. Willard, the board took a tour of the schools. I'm gonna stop here at the Griswold here. The laboratories at Griswold and at all the elementary schools are really outdated. They definitely need, we're looking at getting some bids to look at the upgrading the laboratory as far as ventilation and the flooring and fixtures. But that's something that came out of the tours that the board took, as well as McGee, the steam rooms. Even though they had some new tables, a lot of the old, painting from 50 years ago and flooring and things really still look dated. We tried to keep as much in as we could here to address the steam rooms. Berlin High School, flexible seating. As a district level, there's the athletics. We did cut athletics a little bit. Both van for the Transition Academy, which was requested, not funded. And the last part here, this is not part of our budget. We did share upstairs with Kevin Delaney. This is the security, as I think the board, as we know the board is aware of, that the security budget resides with the town, in account 61. In that account, you can see that currently we're paying for a director and 3 security officers. We'd like to propose 2 additional security staff, which was the initial proposal. Currently we have the security staff enough to cover the 3 elementary schools, leaving the high school and the middle school with just an SRO and our security director. We'd like to propose 2 security staff at the high school, 2 new officers to bring it up to 5. And then some of the areas that we would need, some of the contracted services for security, that's for training, supplies for security, which would include their, and uniforms and security, uniforms for security, $3,000. The equipment for security, we had $14,000 before. That was something that was in the board budget, but looking back, requesting from the town, those would be additional purchases of firearms and safety equipment. So this will not be, as a note there, it's not included in our budget, but will be included hopefully upstairs with the town budget. And then the last slide here just gives you a breakdown. The Board of Education budget is driven by people. And if you look at the certified salaries, you'll see that the certified salaries and administrators make up half of the budget. And that's the first 2, the blue and the red. The green being the non-certified, we're almost, there we're probably at 2/3 of the budget people. And so when you start to cut the budget, there's only so much you can cut beyond starting to cut people. I just think this slide is a great depiction of how the budget functions. If you take the benefits, which are part of the contractual obligations, you're more than 3/4 of the budget. And so when you really start to think about cutting the budget, you're talking about either cutting people or you're cutting the other pieces there, that not even a third, it's less than a quarter of the budget. And as I said, one way to look at it is last year with the 3.2% increase, this year again, it's 2.25% to meet contractual obligations. So if you're thinking about the contractual obligations, I'm just talking about salary, I'm not talking about benefits even, just salary is 2.25% increase against last year's budget. That being said, anything, less than that, you would start losing staff. Never mind the new staff that have been proposed, which are really staff, other than the IT, to take care of the cameras and the technology that we've purchased and installed. Those staff, other staff members being recommended are staff that were cut either last year or the year before. So it's not as though we're out asking for new staff, we're just trying to get back to where we were with the staff that had a major cut in years past. the last slide. I always like the stacked bar graph. I think it shows a great depiction of what was here. 6.47 sounds like a very high number. I agree. The original budget was over 10.5%. These are the positions in yellow that were requested by administration that were not funded. So though all those positions were eliminated prior to the creation of this budget. And I grouped in certified and non-certified administration. Those are just all positions. Can't see it?
We didn't get
We didn't get that,
that.
sorry.
And we don't have it in, we don't have it in the book either.
Access online, it's under the superintendent, under the
Okay.
agenda, it's part two of the.
Part two.
budget.
Is that better?
It's
Sorry,
just small.
I apologize, yeah. But the proposed budget from last year, our revised budget from last year, 44,977,848, and then our proposed budget this year at 47,887,504, an increase of $2,909,656, 6.4%. Looking at the total budget, just staff, I didn't put in anything else that was asked for, just the staffing request. We were up 10.5, about 10.5%. So the budget was cut, those staffing requests, only the ones I spoke of, which were the 4 positions are being asked for this year. To break down the bottom gray, and I apologize about the size, that just shows the percent increase, which is from your summary sheet, but it also shows the overall impact of what those positions are that are in this gray, of the proposed increases from each line.
Thank you, Brian. It's a lot to take in. I know we had access to this. I went through some of it last night. Hearing your explanation helps a little bit, but I'm still generating questions, I think, in my own mind. So my thought is we also have all the the administrators here tonight to go through their individual schools. What's the thought process? Do we pose questions now? Do we hold off until the next meeting or the 27th to start or pose them in writing? What do we think?
So, before we can get to the questions, a couple of things just, I think, to be aware of that the F&O committee discussed, just so that you know that we've talked about some of these things. Brian touched on the fact that there is equipment and such that didn't meet the $25,000 threshold to go in the account that it was accounted for last year, and it is in this operating budget this year. I think it's important for you guys to know that that number is somewhere around $640,000, I think, in total, so little over 1.5% of his 6.47% proposed is something that was accounted for here, but now it's all in this budget. So don't look at Brian like he's out of his mind to have a number here. Part of it is because of an accounting change.
So
just be aware of that when you're doing your kind of evaluation of the numbers. Why does it look this way? Some of it is because in order to get the equipment and so forth that is needed by the district to continue with its technology and continue with its curriculum, those items were in a different account, and now they're here. We used to ask them as capital. Am I saying this right, Adam? I think I am. Yeah.
They used to be capital requests
Tim,
based on the changes now in accounting procedures that has to be over 25,000. Those now go into our regular budget, the superintendent's
And these
budget.
are, to Matt's point, are not necessarily new things. These are software maintenance subscriptions that are in contracted services for tools that we have and have had for years and continue to use. Attendance systems and curriculum systems. And
So not new things
Not
that
new
we now
things.
decided we need, but things that used to be funded in other ways now have to be funded through the budget.
pieces of software and tools that are licensed annually that you have to pay for maintenance to continue to utilize that tool, which we're not gonna stop using. So the monies are now showing up here, to Matt's point, 1.5 or 1.5% of the 6.47 is net new to this budget, but not net new dollars.
So technically, Brian's budget would be a 5% increase, if you looked at it that way.
Correct. Right, that was the
Okay.
kind of
Under.
the big focus of
Yep.
the previous meeting is, if we pull that out, what does it look like? And the answer was it's gonna be somewhere around 5%.
Under 5.
So,
So connected to that, before you go further, I know you have more, and that's fine, but did we put anything forth, any capital budget requests?
Yes, and when Jeff presents, he'll share with you.
Okay, thank you.
The town has definitely moved forward in that new criteria of the 25,000.
Right.
And there's things that have been needed that the town has currently, now whether they make it through or not.
Right.
Currently on, such as the heating and cooling system updates that are required at some of the elementary schools. It's been on the list for a number of years. You know, there are definitely pieces there that are favorable towards the Board of Education the town's moving forward on. It's just not those pieces that are the smaller equipment items. We have never had an equipment budget for technologies, you know, a technology budget. This year, Jeff asked our IT director to put together a technology budget. And so that is one reason why you see these increases in equipment and contractual services. Because now you're seeing actually what is really required in the area of technology. In years past, it's been catch as catch can if there's funds available at the end of the year to try to take care of the technology needs, such as servers and hardware, as well as, you know, desktops, laptops, you know, one-to-one devices. It's never been.
And I would approach this, then, to me, it's similar to what we did with ESS last year, where we took something that we were trying to do catch as catch can, as you said, and putting it into the budget request where it belongs, that this is gonna be a need or desire of the district going forward. And it should be funded as such.
And that's exactly what the directive was last year to do, and we're
Right.
going to do this year. That it was something we needed, it's in the budget.
I know the building administrators are here to present tonight too, so to roll back to what you just asked is how should we proceed? I'm gonna reiterate what you said, and there's a lot in here to digest.
Yep.
There's a lot for you to look at, even though you did get it at the end of last week, Friday afternoon, but I know that we meet again for a budget workshop.
Wednesday, and then again on January 27th.
27th. I would recommend that you take the time to go through these, highlight the areas that are a question or a concern, or you want to know more about, and we feed those back through to either through you, Rich, or through Brian, however you two think best. That would be my recommendation, so that then when we literally go through this kind of line by line is what my expectation is we're gonna end up doing.
On the 27th.
Yeah, is we can kind of tear it down, and maybe some of that work is already done. So at least especially if it's just informational, is what makes this up and why is
Right.
it what it is?
So
You
there
know,
are
I have-
procedural questions
I have one
and
right
also
out of the gate,
informational
right?
ones.
Is I have
Right.
one right away that pops into my head, and is,
So-
why is this increasing by, 50% or 150%, and what drives that?
So my suggestion then on that would be to funnel the questions through me, so Brian doesn't get inundated with duplicate questions. And we'll make sure that we get the information to all of you. Any question that's asked by anybody, the answer will be forwarded to everybody.
Yep.
So everybody's able to see the question that was asked, in case that was something in your mind, but you just didn't phrase it, or it pops, it comes into your head. So, so to the rest of tonight will be the admin, the different principals will speak for a few minutes each. And then on Wednesday, it will be Linda and Jeff. Are you on Wednesday as well? And also Jeff Morey, I believe, for the athletics,
Yep.
correct? And then we'll put all these questions together, and then we'll try to answer all of them by the 27th and see where we are at the end of that. Does that make sense? Okay. I don't know if there's any particular order that people want to go in, and Aaron's going to go also today after the principals go. Oh, they're all lining up. All
They
right.
got it lined up, look.
Yeah, they're going.
I know, but I meant which elementary school? Are they all coming up together? No, they don't have to. They can do whatever they want.
I think they for the sake of time.
Kickoff
All right, it's
is in
fine.
40 minutes.
Yeah.
What was that?
Kickoff is in 40 minutes.
I don't care. I don't like college football. Do we have any extra chairs we can bring up? Thank you, Brian. we'll be hearing from Mrs. Royce and from Willard, and Mr. Kitzman from Griswold, and Mr. Souza from Hubbard.
Saw the flag go up.
I trust Brian with this one.
Where do we got it? Nothing works, great.
Second here. Okay, so thank you for that. Hope everyone took a quick break while we played with the technology. We're here to just go over in a little bit more detail some of the elementary budget proposals that we put forward to the superintendent. We thought it'd be nice to start, though, with just what some of our drivers are as we sit down in the summer and start thinking about the budget that we were going to propose. And we've outlined what those 4 drivers are up here, and in no particular order. The first one being creating learning experiences that promote a sense of purpose, ignite passion, and foster a sense of pride. We see the budget as being the first step in fulfilling that mission statement. That is, of course, the Berlin Schools mission statement. Support the academic, social, emotional, and developmental needs of the pre-K to grade 5 student. And just want to take a moment to point out to everyone that we're talking about in pre-K 4-year-olds to up to 11-year-olds, and the needs of those students being so drastically different and how our budget can supporting them. Providing instructional resources necessary to meet and challenge all students to fulfill their potential. When we're talking about what we think is a top-notch curriculum, and we have some of the greatest teachers in the state at our 3 elementary schools, at all Berlin Public Schools. But what can we do with the budget to continue to put them in a place where they can be successful? And finally, building safety. The building safety is something I think we've taken a lot of big steps forward in the last couple of years with the budget and how it's supported building safety. We feel very secure right now, and we want to maintain that. So those being our 4 drivers, the 3 of us sit down first independently, but then we spend a lot of time together, and we look at staffing, which I'm going to talk about first. Mr. Benigni presented to you already what was included in his budget, but he also asked that we talk a little bit about what we requested that was not included. And this might be something that leads to more questions later on or even on Wednesday, and we're happy to respond if we can. So what was included in the budget? First were the kindergarten paraprofessionals. This is a new position and something that we've really pushed hard for and are very thankful for the support for this. The K paraprofessionals work with students individually and in groups, provide instruction, prepare materials, perform assigned classroom tasks, supervise students in the classroom, in the hallways, during lunch, during recess. The needs of our kindergarten students, we really never know what their prior experiences are with school when they come to us until we have a brief meeting in the spring.
In the summer, we try to, continue that communication with the families. But sometimes on August 27th or so, things come up, we realize that there's some supports that we need in place. These CARES are essential for us to support them and progress them forward, especially with the increased expectations that we're seeing in kindergarten and in first grade. The next one is the tech integration specialist, which Brian spoke about briefly as well. Last year, this is something we're trying to reclaim, that fund, or that FTE that we had in previous years. Right now, and I hope I get this accurately though, between the three schools, we have a .5 who's split between Willard, or .5 at Willard, .4 at Griswold. No, .5 at Griswold as well, but we also have someone coming over from Hubbard to support the students at Griswold as well. And the Hubbard person is splitting time between the Library and Media Center and the Tech Integration Specialist. If you're looking at ratios, I'll just take an easy one because between our two schools, we have roughly 1,000 students. We went from 1 to 1 to 500 to 1 to 1,000. 1 to 500 sounds high, but with scheduling and treating it like a special, we were able to get into the classroom with the tech integration specialist, have enrichment opportunities for kids with coding, with using the green screen, making broadcast reports, lots of opportunities for that. When you're going to 1 to 1,000, while I think that the person who's doing that is doing an admirable job, it's just, we're not doing it the same way we used to do it. So we're trying to reclaim that position. We believe that the tech integration specialist is a place where you truly see innovation in elementary schools and where we're preparing students to fulfill some of our Berlin learner outcomes of mindful and responsive collaborators, effective communicators, and innovative and imaginative designers. That's something that we think is just vital for preparing these students for secondary school and beyond. And then finally, we have lunch and recess duty paraprofessionals, which was included in the budget this time. To give you an idea of what this means, at the schools, we are pulling math or reading instructional paraprofessionals to cover recess and lunch duty because we just don't have enough hours to maintain that safe ratio of staff to students at recess or in lunch. That's getting in the way of us being able to implement things such as SRBI and support struggling students or enrichment opportunities for kids. We'd like to be able to have those people in the classrooms working with kids as opposed to on the playground. But we do need to maintain that safety, so right now that's where some of them are for part of their day. Requested and not included at this time, reading teacher, a math interventionist, a writing interventionist. Those three are primarily so that we could support students in the SRBI process, needing specifically Tier 3 interventions. The art teacher and social worker, I'm going to let Mr. Sousa speak to because those are specific to Hubbard School.
Sure.
But they were requests that we made that were not included.
Sure. So just a quick note on the items that are already included in the budget. Two of those items, as Mr. Benigni indicated, we had lost. So the tech integration specialist isn't something new, it's something we're trying to recoup. The lunch recess duty paras isn't something new, it's something we're trying to recoup from prior cuts. The kindergarten paras we absolutely feel very, very strongly about, and that was something that was able to be put into the budget this year, and we'd like to maintain that. As far as the specifics with the art teacher and the social worker, the art teacher right now is shared. It's a .4 position that we need to share and schedule. It results in parallel time, so it's not like students at the schools are getting short on time. However, the logistics and scheduling, when you're pulling from two separate schools to come together and service a third school, it gets massively problematic. Not in so much of getting the 45 minutes, but it's in how you create a schedule. And when schedule and minutes change, and you need people available all across the board. So when you have someone in your building providing .4, they're in that building for that duration of time, and you have to worry about one variable. When you have three people, there's three variables, three schedules, and then the wavering instructional minutes that can happen throughout a year. So it causes a very less than ideal scenario in terms of how you're maximizing that professional. But we are getting the art minutes in. The social worker piece, simply at the elementary level, we advocated for social worker support, and certainly there is at Griswold and Willard, that professional there, highly needed. For Hubbard, this was just a smaller piece, just maybe a .5, getting some social work support to support the school psychologist's work there. So it's just nuanced, those last two pieces.
So you have a social worker at Griswold and Willard, but not Hubbard?
Correct.
I'm sorry, the school psychologist will
just
pick up that slack at Hubbard.
Correct.
Or not that slack, but that
Yes,
responsibility.
yes, yep,
Okay.
yep. And to be fair to my colleagues, there's numbers. They have 400, 500 students. I have 220 students. Certainly, that's not to say it's an easier job, but I absolutely understand the balance of where you have to put your support. So as an elementary level, we're trying to look at how do we benefit the total population. That's where the social worker came in for Hubbard in this piece.
So next, we move on to elementary equipment and facility. What you see highlighted are items that are funded or partially funded in the proposed budget. First is office millwork. This comes from our vestibule project. We were lucky last year at each of the schools to have a vestibule installed in the foyer areas to ensure the safety and security of our school communities. With that, there are renovations that need to be made to utilize that to its fullest capacity. So each of the schools has a sliding glass window. The purpose of that window is for people visiting and entering our building to insert licenses so that they can go through the Raptor system. However, the current configurations don't allow for that yet. So there would have to be some renovations, some counters moved, some adjustments made to allow one of the desks to be near the window to access that and then be inserted into the Raptor system. And as you know, the Raptor system is the way that we identify who's in the building at all times. Mr. Benigni spoke to the lavatory upgrades. As he mentioned, they're outdated, and they're looking to upgrade the flooring and ventilation, so you'll notice that's on there. The hallway floor tiles was on the list as there are concerns about updating, they're lifting, cracking, and cosmetic pieces such as mismatching. And the general building equipment refers to the desks, the rugs, the tables, and the shelvings that are proposed.
Can I just add a comment to that slide? Is that okay? I am so happy that we went on the school tours and you guys took your time to take us on that tour, because can you go back to the slide? Whoever, I'm sorry.
The tech integration specialist.
We never
will
look
go
back at
a
it.
slide.
I would not have known how important all four of those items are if we didn't take the time of 2 months ago to go and walk through those buildings. Seeing the office millwork, the lavatory upgrades, like, wow, it's necessary. They don't smell great. They look old. If anyone's questioning if they should or shouldn't be done, just go on over to one of the schools. And we saw the hallway floor tiles. So I'm really glad that that's in there, but I'm really happy that we have the opportunity, because now this is something like, as a board member, I can really get behind this and know this is crucial for our students. So thank you for taking that time 2 months ago during that board workshop to give us a tour.
One of the pieces that's not on that list, but Mr. Benigni mentioned, which is really important, is the HVAC system.
Yes, I
The
wasn't sure if that
portable-
was under
the
general
por- And the
building.
only reason why it's not there is because at a town level and at central office level, there's been discussion. That is, we have countless
Yes.
portable HVAC systems making up for the existing system.
Currently,
across the
some of
schools.
the elementary schools have 12 portable units in, because the units don't function.
Yeah.
And that
easily
probably
have fun.
costs more money, right?
Yeah, Don't know. I mean, you have to look at factors too. You have to vent them, so then there's a safety
Right.
piece. You've
Yeah.
got vented holes, in the window, you got the condensation you have to account for.
But that item is on
Yes.
the town's capital.
So we'll find out about that on Wednesday in more detail. Excellent, good,
Okay.
good.
Thank you for that slide.
So we have our elementary equipment and facilities continued now, so each of the principals will speak a little bit to their respective school.
Yeah, so we thought we'd also just show you the unique requests, because those first ones were the common ones. At Griswold School, I put forth a request for a band classroom. Right now, our band teacher, as those who came in the tour saw, is teaching on the stage, sharing a classroom with the PE teacher, and they're underneath our main unit there, where there's lots of issues with teaching music with the system that's, generating a lot of noise and sound. It's just not an ideal situation, and it's something that, we'd love to be able to put forward, but we understand the budget constraints. Ceiling tiles is something that was specific to Griswold School, and that was something that was listed as having some funding. As you saw as we walked around the building, a lot of those tiles have what looks like water damage and throughout the entire building. The outdoor classroom is something that we're currently trying to do to support an initiative that we began last year with some of our focus areas. We're using our courtyards and turning them into outdoor learning spaces where kids can get their hands dirty into the soil and really experience the curriculum. We think that's a great opportunity for them and something that they'll remember, really make a lasting impact. Currently, our Parents Club has been very supportive of that, but we also thought we'd put forth a request from the Board of Education. Stairs to the portable, we did show you this. I'm sad to report it actually has gotten worse since I showed you. The hole has grown, and that's something that we think is a safety concern. It's now the size where someone could crawl through there. So that's an issue that we need to get fixed, and that is being funded, or currently being proposed. And finally, exterior landscaping, we're just looking to clean up the front area and make it a little bit more visually pleasing and welcoming school. So those are the specific ones from Griswold.
And over at Hubbard, just a quick note, the highlights are those items that are currently still funded in a way, shape, or form. The ones that aren't are ones that got requested. So you see for Hubbard, the library skylight, it's been a request for a number of years, just because it's a leaking skylight, that it's very hard to repair and seal. It almost has to be replaced. And I'll tie that into that Renovate Media Center. We've done we made some great strides as far as the Library Media Center seating configurations and getting that furniture in place. However, there's still a few pieces that need to be done as far as the seating, but also remodeling of basically the circulation desk and the areas around there. So that's where that's kind of wrapped together. You see painting and the recess area mulch is highlighted. Just to speak for my colleagues as well, we all need painting. And we'll all need the recess mulch area. It's just really the request and how we ordered them. So at different places every year, the mulch is revitalized, and I can guarantee you Griswold is going to need something painted, this coming year. It's just how the priorities were listed. And the final piece, the lighting system, for me, it's more in terms of just efficiency lighting, to save some dollars on having the current lighting replaced for greater efficiency.
So it would, no worries.
Within the building?
Yes.
Like turning to LED lights or something
Yep.
like that? Okay.
Yep.
So at Willard, we have a need for some new cafeteria tables. Some of the tops are separating off, so they are not in good shape. We requested painting as well for some of the hallways and door frames. The request for parking lot lighting comes from the lower lot. Our lower lot is dimly lit, which could potentially pose a safety concern. We have very dedicated staff members, teachers, and our building is utilized for a lot of extracurricular activities as well. So that is why that is there. And as far as playground equipment goes, our playground equipment, for the most part, is very outdated. We had a slide last year that broke. That was replaced, but everything else has been there for an extremely long time. So that's something we'll be revisiting in the next coming years.
The final slide we have just revolves around the operational budget, and Superintendent Benigni mentioned that. Just for greater context, we've, been cut over 10%, around 10%, and trying to, on a day-to-day basis, backfill some of those pieces with our operational budgets. It's always kind of, for lack of a better term, I don't want to say a sliding scale, but you have to plan in a manner that you may be cut operationally, and how are you going to do less with more and be kind of mindful from year to year where you're going to put your dollars. What we really want to do is just simply show what goes in operational. These are the items that are there. So you see our instructional supplies, which is any supply or resource that goes with any program. The non-instructional, and you have to think of instructional supplies as well. Think specialist areas as well. So what the PE teacher's using, what the art teacher's using, what the music teacher's using. That differentiates a little bit from the textbooks, which is self-explanatory. The non-instructional supplies, again, those are all pens, pencils, paper, notebooks, things of that nature per pupil that we use. The software and technology, we've taken great strides to align and almost consolidate as a district the common software and tech pieces used at the elementary. You'll see that when Dr. McGurk presents. Some of our operational has shifted into one consolidated line around those instructional tech pieces. So we're talking about software subscription, renewal, things of that nature. And finally, maintenance repair, instruments break. Things happen in the art room, so that's kind of, although that's a pretty small item, those are areas that we account for and how that runs. So we just wanted to put that in because that is, for us, our day-to-day operations and what we're responsible for and to manage. So just wanted to give just a little context of what goes in there and how we're doing that. Right now, Mr. Benigni mentioned, we had a big cut coming into this year. We tried to backfill that, and we're about, status where we're at, and we're hoping to keep that. So we can not only keep what we have, but move forward a little bit with some of the new things we're doing, because it's really great.
Thanks. I would love that. Can we get that electronically sent to us as well? Because I don't believe we have this presentation.
No,
It's small. No, I would very much like that. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks.
Sal, want to talk to us about McGee's needs?
presentation is gonna look almost identical. All three of ours are, we have the same template.
Okay.
So make it easy for you. We can also share it with you.
Yeah, that'd be great, thank you.
Just wanna make sure it works, and then we'll, can you find a picture of a baby or something? I can't answer.
That's pretty too.
Where is it?
The Grand Tetons. I don't know, I made that up. Uh-oh, we need assistance. You should just sit over there.
That would be my guess. Let's see what she thinks. I'm gonna guarantee she's gonna try.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so the budget goals for all of our schools are very similar. As you know, our fundamental purpose is to really facilitate engaging experiences and opportunities for students that are meaningful and relevant. You can read each of the 4 bullets. They're identical to what the elementary school was presenting. As far as school staffing, you're going to see included in the budget the lead teacher and the interventionist. Initially, I asked for a lead teacher and an interventionist on the requested side, but after the presentation to Brian, he said that he would put in a lead teacher / interventionist, so I'll explain to you what we're looking for there. As you know, last year we lost an assistant principal, or we're cutting assistant principal. That lead teacher part of it would be to assist administration in supporting professional growth and evaluation experiences, so the evaluations that we do, the observations. They would certainly represent and commit resources at 504s, PPTs, family meetings, team meetings on a daily basis, oversee daily operations, the clerical, the custodian, the cafeteria, the certified, transportation, health, security and safety. They would be involved in some of the scheduling, the budget, and overall work with the student body. At the same time, and if that's not a big enough job, we would also ask them to, this person to serve as an interventionist, to support struggling learners. So they would be planning, implementing, assessing the impact of instruction, monitoring the progress of students, documenting and communicating with families, and if they can fit it in, maybe do some coaching to ensure that our instructional models were implemented with fidelity. So that would be a big job, and that would be something that we'd be looking for. On the requested side, you'll see school counselor there. And what we were looking to do was to have an additional school counselor to manage the caseload of students. Currently, we're looking at a 1 to 215 counselor to student ratio. That would cut it down to a 1 to 162. Of course, they would work with our students on a daily basis for social and emotional health, any conflicts, attendance support, SRBI coordination, and just really manage the caseload of students. If, I know Brian mentioned that it's possible that we can get an ESS social worker. That would be a trade-off. Of course, they couldn't be 504 coordinator, case manager, or SRBI coordinator, but that would be helpful because they could work with students' social, emotional health and well-being and their families. So, in addition to that, the last 3 there you see, so in the last couple of years, we had a 1.0 office, clerical in the office. That was cut in the past. I was asking for a 0.5 to put that back, and I'll explain each to you, but the last year, we were cut a PE health and wellness teacher, was asking for half of that back, and then also world language world language teacher, we had .6, so she was teaching 3 classes. That was also cut, and I was asking for .4. So the 3 of those, or let's start with the teachers, the health and the world language teachers, those were being asked for, or were asked for strictly based on numbers. When we see numbers, class sizes go north of 25. Right now, our world language teachers, we have 1 certified French teacher. Lisa Rabi certified French and Spanish. So we have 31 current 7th graders moving up to 8th grade. Next year is a big class, going to 8th grade. So instead of putting 31 students in one class, we split those classes up, so 15 and 16. She's teaching, not out of contract, but she's teaching an extra class, and while she's in French classes, that makes the Spanish classes grow in size. So we do have Spanish classes 25, 26, some 27. The PE health and wellness classes, where I was asking for, that .4 results in 2 sections, so it would be 2 classes. We have classes north of 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, and 31 this year. So those are large class sizes. We would be asking for help for the next year alone. We had those positions cut, asking for half of those back. The office assistant, that's a job that would work in the office again to help with clerical support, attendance. We have a Raptor system, substitute assignments in the morning, just basic reception as people are coming in. A couple of years ago, we didn't have the Raptor system or the bell. It seems the beginning of the day and the end of the day, with 645 students coming and going, we really could use the help with clerical.
Before you click off that, I'll just.
Sure.
Linda, you alluded to the ESS expansion media. Are you going to touch on that
Yes.
on Wednesday? Okay, hold on, thank you.
Yep. Okay, these are the equipment and facility. So the highlighted ones are the ones that made it through. The office mill work is basically when the vestibule project was put in, just like these guys just talked about, there are some counters that have to be moved so they can have access to the reception area. We want to make it more safe, we want to make it more efficient, and just improved customer service. With 2 people in there, once in a while somebody takes a break, we only have 1, we want to be closer to the door. So that's finishing the vestibule project as it impacted the office. The STEAM classrooms, those of you that had a chance to see them, you know, they're old tech ed classrooms with concrete floors. There's some storage that we had to get rid of because it was so old. They were just old lockers. So we're looking to paint those rooms, try to modernize them, get some storage in there, get some color in there. And then in addition to that, does everybody know what a 3D laser printer does in an event? You do? All of you know? Okay, great. Well, I'll tell you a little bit more about it. So, all right, so in our STEAM classrooms, part of STEAM, as you know, is science, technology, engineering, math, and then we're really trying to integrate the arts into that as well. So this laser printer is something that can actually print with a laser onto like wood, fabric, leather, vinyl. So if you're looking at, you know, your Mac computer that has like the Apple on it, that should actually be burned into something, and then it can actually be cut out and you can design something from it. So it's really for personalized design and learning. But it has to be vented as well. So those are 3 items in STEAM classrooms. General building equipment is something we talked about in terms of the cables, the plugs associated possibly with, for example, the next item down, you see a digital soundboard and lighting board equipment in our auditorium. We had a chance to upgrade our gym area, so our athletics are looking pretty good, and our wellness center as well. I think we need to start to take a look at the other side of the building. We have old sound and lighting equipment. It's actually in the wings. If you do sound and lighting, you actually should be out front like it is at the high school, so you can see where the sound booth and lighting booth are, so you can see. So those are things we're looking to upgrade. The things that did not make the cut, you know when you go in the auditorium at McGee and you look up where the spotlight used to be. Well, that's now our television studio, so the morning news is delivered there. If we do get the digital sound and lighting equipment, that's really where that needs to be, up there, up in that area. So we have to find a way to move the television studio if we're gonna continue to use it. So that didn't make the cut, but we understand, and we'll do what we can if we can find a closet somewhere, but that was one of the things we were looking for. The furniture and fixtures, as you did those billing tours, you see the high seating, the low seating. When you go to a restaurant, you like the high tops, you like the low tops, there's soft seating, so same things at the school. We asked for 4 classrooms, a classroom's about $15,000 to outfit. That didn't make the cut this year. And then the last item there, you see the converted fixed computer lab to the classroom. We actually moved one of our Spanish teachers we have it partially done, so we were able to take one of the fixed labs in what used to be the old library, and we weren't using that lab, so I moved it to a classroom right now. So that's done for the most part. So that's something that is done. You can actually cross that off your list. Well, you'll have this. You'll have it. Okay, and the last one is basically the same slide, just with an example of what we're using. So the items in our operational budget, instructional supplies, of course, to implement curriculum. Non-instructional supplies would serve as tools and resources to try to structure the learning and organize the learning. Our textbooks, of course, are a guide for teaching and learning. The software, really, we want to get the latest available resources to increase learner engagement. And then, not only our instruments break, which they do, but we want to repair and maintain them to maximize the life of the learning equipment and tools.
Thank you very much.
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Share
you.
them. Who should I share them with? Brian, who will share them with you?
Thank you.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Do I have to plug in? Budget's larger, but I think my presentation might actually be a little shorter, so that's good for everybody else. So I will go ahead and start, what's that? Okay, great. All right. It's okay, I can see it. Okay, so, one of the things I wanted to do with the budget goals is they're similar, and I also wanted to take some time to connect it to the Board of Education core values that you set out. So the first one with the personalized learning pathways, the bullet underneath in terms of decisions that we're making for the budget. I think it's really important at the high school level to maintain our breadth of course offerings in order to meet the individual needs and interests of our students, and also to grow programs as appropriate. One of the things that I've been working with our staff on, a lot of times teachers are very eager and they want to propose new courses, but we also talk about the fact that it comes with an expense, but at the same time, you also have to, if you want to propose new things, sometimes you have to take other things out. So we've really been working to find the balance, and we talked a little bit about that as we were going through the approval with the program of studies. So the other thing in terms of the breadth of course offerings, one of the things at the high school that people have to remember is that in order to maintain that breadth, especially for students that maybe have been in a pathway have been on a 2, 3, 4-year strand. Sometimes when you get to the last course in a strand, it might be a small class. And it's hard to kind of make a decision to say, I'm not going to run it because I don't have 18 kids in that class. Sometimes it feels like you're sort of cutting a student off at their knees, like I've spent all this time and I've invested so much and I don't get a chance to make it to that like capstone class or even enough to like get a strand started. Sometimes it's really important that we get to maintain our current staffing to provide students with the social and emotional supports, our counseling staff, our related services staff, and also the supports that we have in place for post-secondary planning and also maintaining appropriate class sizes for our students. So the 2 security officers at the high school. One of your last core values that you put out was the flexible use of resources in terms of time and space. And so one of the things that we've been working on at the high school over the last year and a half is just to increase our innovative practices. And a lot of that is connected with the use of resources, particularly technology. And we're also looking to continue with that unique modern classroom space. We are fortunate. I know that the high school's in a different place than the elementary and the middle school. We do have an aesthetically like beautiful building with amazing resources. But the trade-off with that is that we need to maintain them. So we need to make sure that things don't fall into disrepair, that with all of this amazing technology, as you know, technology is constantly changing, so we have to make sure that we continue to update it so that it doesn't become outdated, and therefore you don't want it to get to a point where it's not effective or efficient for us as well. So in terms of staffing, one of the things that we're requesting is 1.0 world language, and there's several reasons that we're looking to for that request. One, I think that we really are looking to move our world language program 7-12 forward. And somewhere down the line, we may even look to potentially expand it outside of 7th grade. That really does take the leadership of somebody in that particular content area. We have someone right now that's serving as a coordinator. That person teaches a full role or a full course load. So basically, they're just doing more of the managerial things for 7-12. So I would like to see the coordinator's position become a supervisor. Therefore, that person would have a reduced teaching load. And connected with that, that supervisor would then be able to evaluate and supervise the world language teachers, not just at the high school, but also at the middle school. And with the fact that the middle school is down an administrator, that would be helpful and supportive for them as well. In addition to that request, so they would need to pick up the 2 sections that, I would like to see for the supervision role. We weren't able to run French 1 last year. And the reason being is because we didn't have enough staffing. We needed an additional .2, and you just can't go out and find just a .2 French teacher at that point. It's really difficult. So in terms of looking at the French program, we have enough students that once again, I think we would have enough students to want to run French 1. Right now, we're also currently running French 4 and French 5, same teacher, same classroom, same period. It's really not an ideal situation. So we have enough students that are taking French 4 that provided that they continue, that should be a standalone French 5 class. We should have a standalone French 4 class. So I think of a school of our size at 900 students, I really don't want to see us get into a position where we're only going to be running 1 world language. So it's really important that we continue to support our French program as well. We've also talked about expanding world language in other creative ways as well, whether it's through distance learning, online learning, and that sort of thing. So again, the support of that additional world language teacher is really important. One last reminder is that we did have the additional graduation requirement, beginning with this year's current freshman class, that all students have to take at least 1 credit in world language. We have about 10% of our population that does not take world language. If you take that out to a class of 250 kids or 200, that's an additional 20 to 25 students somewhere along the line have to take a year of world language. And that equates to an additional .2 as well. So all told, that's where that world language is. The 2.0 security officers, the reason behind that is that I know the security officers, for the most part, are dispersed at the elementary buildings. They do come and support us during certain times. I think one of the things I need to put out there is our building is open. We have people coming in our building as early as 6:30. Our doors are open at 6:45. Yes, they're closed and locked right at the start of the day, but then our building is open from 2:15 till 10 o'clock at night. It is really important that during the day, we have at least 2 security guards that are just the eyes and ears of the building. They're walking around, they're making relationships with students, they're, really just being on the lookout to ensure that everybody is safe and secure. We have a lot of traffic, not just, in the building during the day, but a lot of people that come in and out before school, during the day, after school, and well into the evening. We know that our building, it's not just Berlin High School, it also belongs to the town. And because it is such a wonderful and lovely building, that we have a lot of outside groups that do come in and out of the building, particularly at night. So I think it's important that we have 2 people during the day and somebody else at night as well. So thus the request for the 2 security guards, security officers. Additional requests that did not make it into the budget, I've been interested in a 1.0 computer science STEM teacher / curriculum developer. I think just in the way in terms of our industry, the way in which we're going, if we're looking to prepare students, I really think we need someone that can truly focus in those areas. That would include technical and trade technology as well, which I think is important. As far as the 1.0 Tier 2 intervention teacher, I would love to have a full-time interventionist that deals with our Tier 2 students. Tier 2 students would be students that need intervention but don't necessarily qualify for special services. Oftentimes what happens with our students right now is we place them in structured study, which structured study is run by our special ed staff, drives the numbers up in our structured studies, and so our special ed staff, not only are they dealing with their identified students, but they're also dealing with their non-identified students. And while they're happy to do that, the numbers in those structured studies is getting larger, and therefore students can't get the individualized services that they need. In terms of equipment and facility, again, I don't have the same type of building needs that the other buildings do, so some of it has to do with flexible seating and some replacement equipment. So interestingly enough, one of the really well-done capstone presentations that was done by a student, Ryan Holland, last week, he did an entire presentation about modernizing classroom spaces. Did you get to see that? So, and he talked a lot about technology, and he actually talked about flexible seating in classrooms. And that was not at my doing, I promise, I did not put him up to that. But one of the things that he said that really stuck out to me is we talk about the fact back in the day, education was very institutionalized, one size fits all, desks and rows, chairs, and if you start to think about it, you go into a classroom, same desk, same chair, every student. So we did a pilot this year with 2 classrooms for flexible seating in terms of meeting students' learning needs, the types of learning that they're doing in terms of collaboration, just different types of breakouts that they can do, and also meeting the individual needs of students just in terms of how, not all students may learn the best sitting at a singular desk and chair, and if you think about it, they're doing it from 7:25 to 2:10. So that's one of the things that's in my equipment and facilities request. Some of our cafeteria seating, particularly the benches that are along the side, they're just not holding up as well, and they're in need of replacement. And then the final 2 things have to do with radio station equipment and upgrades, portable live streaming equipment so that we can actually push out to sporting events. We do need to replace the transmitter for the radio station. That's been something that's been recommended by our engineer for the last couple of years. The VR headset cleaning, we need a VR headset cleaning system, which is expensive. And then additional instructional equipment related to the auditorium, the TV studio, and our virtual reality. Again, maintaining, repairing when needed, and then upgrading when it's appropriate to do so. In terms of building operation and instruction, just really in terms of instructional materials and software to support our curriculum, meeting the learning needs of students, just constantly looking to be able to update. One of the things that is a little different is that we're not always buying hard textbooks anymore. So a lot of things are being replaced with online subscriptions, online textbook materials, or supports, and those are coming at a cost of yearly or bi-yearly or every 3-year subscriptions. So those things are on a cycle. The increased cost of supplies and consumables. So for example, everybody's grocery bills probably keeps going up at home. So as we run our family and consumer science programs, which those classes are bursting at the seams, food is more expensive. Supplies are more expensive. Just paper alone is more expensive. So those are driving some of the costs up as well. And then budgeting for equipment and maintenance and repairs. So when I got there, one of the things I was noticing is that in some of our departments that have pretty specific equipment, so for example, art, when the pottery wheel and things like that, the soldering, the refrigerator and family consumer science, there was no allotment for like repair and maintenance connected to the individual departments. So we tried to build in some money in order to take care of maintenance, repair, and replacement for specialized equipment. So those are the things that are just driving some of the costs in terms of building, operation, and instruction. And that's it. Okay.
And last but not least will be our curriculum and instruction budget presentation.
Presentations are there for this?
One,
Just one?
just one, Aaron.
Wasn't sure.
No, to my knowledge, that's all I was told.
Okay, so I wasn't invited in on the shared PowerPoint presentation party. So I just have a one-page overview that gives you highlights of the curriculum program budget summary. Just to give you sort of a context for this, this is the part of the budget that I really see as our research and development. It's our investment in staff members, and it's the part of the budget that I really see as helping us to grow out our programs and our staff members. You'll see on the sheet that I put the budget from 2 years ago, the current budget, and our proposed budget. And I'm going to just go quickly through the categories to show you some of the major changes. One of the things I want to note is that, as Brian mentioned in his overview, there are some ways that we've looked at managing the accounts across the system that have had an impact on my budget, and I'll explain some of those because they account for some of the swings and the variance in my particular budget. So the first line is instructional supplies. You'll see that it was at $190,000 a couple of years ago. I took it down to $100,000, and I feel comfortable leaving it at that amount in the upcoming school year. This instructional supplies account is separate from the schools in that it's really designed to be building principals or proposing budgets based on the number of sections and the things that they think are going to happen for next year. It's possible, for example, that we add another section at a grade level, another fifth grade class, another kindergarten class, and the building budgets don't suddenly have money to buy classroom libraries and fully equip those classrooms. So this instructional supplies account gives us some of that flexibility to meet those needs as they arise. The other way that that money is typically used is that as we go through the curriculum renewal process each year, we have teachers, as you know, who are paid during the summertime to update and revise curriculum and to write curriculum for new courses. And in the process of that, we sometimes come across the need for additional supplies or materials. So we have new units written for NGSS. People say, oh, we need money to buy this material to implement the science experiments. Those weren't budgeted in the building budgets because they didn't exist in the curriculum at the time those budgets were written. So we have money in this account to be flexible around that. The certified salaries account is the account where we pay for the summer stipends for people who do curriculum writing. So that's up just a modest amount that really reflects the change in salaries as we move forward in the new contract. Professional ed services is showing a 9% increase. This is an account that actually has had much broader changes than is reflected in just that increase. We took some of the large accounts such as Power School that are really our system operating expenses and moved them out of my budget into a system account to address those things that we need to make sort of the lights go on in this, to keep track of attendance, to keep track of absence management, the way we keep the payroll systems. We moved all of those systems into one section of the budget. What came into my budget is a lot of the software subscriptions from individual buildings. So what had happened in the past was that each of the buildings had money set aside for software for their own buildings and made individual decisions about the software that they were purchasing for Hubbard versus Griswold versus Willard. Sometimes it was because a technology integration specialist or a teacher in one building had an interest, and the previous assistant superintendent had really promoted that level of flexibility and having people try out and experiment and innovate as they try new things. I'm all for that, and at the same time, we also see a need to look across the buildings to see what things need to be equitable across the three buildings. And if something's a great resource at Griswold, we want that same great resource to be available at the other two elementary schools. So we're trying to find the sweet spot between having building-based control and flexibility that supports innovation, and also having some things that are common across all of the buildings. And the items that are common across all of the buildings, we're looking to put them onto a common purchase cycle that will allow us to negotiate with the companies that are selling the softwares to look for larger discounts. So for example, if we look at the different products that are purchased by one company, we might say we're buying 200 licenses here, 300 licenses here, and that coupled together gives us a volume discount that allows us to save money. The other thing that are helpful that comes out of that is efficiency in the payment and management of the software licensing agreements. Eileen mentioned that in terms of how it comes with textbooks at the high school. And to be frank, in the old days when you just had hard copy textbooks, at the end of the year, you brought the textbooks back, you counted the number of textbooks. Julie's nodding that she's been through this. And the inventory of that is pretty clear and obvious. Keeping track of the renewals for all of the different softwares, including the licenses for the textbooks, is more complicated because some of them are 1-year purchases, some are 3-year purchases, some are 6-year purchases. Some of them are ones that are up for renewal, but they're on a textbook that you bought 8 years ago, so you don't really want to buy a 5-year renewal because you might get a new textbook, so you don't want to pay too far into the future. So that management piece is something that we're trying to pull together at a central level to try to make that smoother and easier to operate, both for the business office and to keep track of the individual schools. For in-service, that account is up a pretty substantial amount at 33%, and this goes to the principle that you spoke to earlier in looking, as we did with ESS, to budget things in the budget that we have actually been spending money on that weren't previously budgeted for appropriately. So there are a number of contracts for outside presenters. For example, last year you saw the students at Willard School take you through and show you some of the work that they were doing for Math Studio. That had been budgeted, had not been budgeted, it had been paid for out of year-end spending, year-end funds as they became available in order to budget for it appropriately so that we can count on that moving forward. I moved it into the regular budget so that payment is accounted for. Under meetings and conferences, you again see a pretty large swing. This is really a movement of money that was requested at the high school under meetings and conferences. So where in most of the buildings, the individual buildings weren't creating their own line items for professional development, for teachers to attend conferences and outside trainings. The high school had some of those items in their individual accounts. So we're moving that money all over into a central location. Staff travel, this is down just slightly. This is the travel for people like Lori and Cara at Jean Burrup who move across buildings, who are paid on the IRS mileage rate for movement between buildings. And when we looked at the actuals were a little bit less than what we had budgeted previously. Non-instructional supplies and administrative supplies, I didn't change at all. For textbooks, Brian indicated, again, that this is an account that swings pretty broadly depending on what textbooks are up for renewal in a particular year. This year, the textbooks that have been proposed for renewal are from the high school for AP ECE Calculus. This is a textbook edition that we expect to get 80 copies of the text, plus the web access. And this is an update that's required by UConn. So when we have ECE courses where we're offering the early college experience credit through UConn, UConn has a tight handle on which textbooks can be used, and exerts pressure on the school district to update the textbooks so that the building, the high school level course is on a par with what they would be getting at the university level. And in science, there are a couple of things that are coming under the textbook request this year. One is textbooks for the AP environmental science course, for environmental science for AP, for ALEX codes that are required for the UConn ECE chemistry course, and ETEX licenses for physics, for 100 physics students, which is again one of those licenses that came up for renewal at this time. So that is that. The dues and fees is a small amount that it pays for my enrollment in some of the state organizations.
Thank you very much.
You're
I
welcome.
appreciate it.
Like your one-pager. It's helpful, the one-pager.
So we've heard a lot of information. Did you have some?
I have one
Go ahead.
overall question. So those areas that have been moved from the buildings to the district level budget, I'm assuming the net effect to the budget request is 0.
You're stating
Because if you moved something from the building.
Yes.
And moved
Yeah.
it to the district, the
Yes.
net effect is 0 overall.
Yes.
It's just moving it into a different place.
Right.
Everything that you heard from the
Okay.
principals this evening and from the assistant superintendent is reflective in the large overall budget that I showed you this evening. So, yes, if it's been moved to one line, the other, you'll see that the net effect is 0. It's just where it resides.
Just
And
where it
we're-
resides,
Right.
that's all.
Right.
So I pointed it out because in some places mine jumps, but.
Well,
Yes.
No, I'm glad that you did it that way, because earlier I was starring things and you answered some of the questions that
Right.
Rich was gonna be getting.
Where is it jumping from into yours and trying to
Right.
track it?
So-
We have a lot of information tonight to digest, we really do. And we're gonna get inundated again on Wednesday with even more things. So my suggestion, if you have the opportunity, is to maybe generate a few questions while it's still fresh in your mind over the next couple of days, before we get hit with round 2 on Wednesday, and then some of the good questions maybe get lost in the shuffle. Just my suggestion. Before we take a motion to adjourn, I want to thank all the administrators, the kids, the students, everybody who came out this evening to help us. Also want to thank Mr. Richards, our Board of Finance liaison, the mayor, and Mrs. Angelica Stetson coming in and hearing firsthand all the information. I hope to see some of you on Wednesday as well as we hit round 2 of everything. Do I have a motion to adjourn, perhaps?
Who was that?
Second.
Adam, seconded by Matt, as quickly as possible. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much, everybody.